All right. Well, welcome to Boosting Student Engagement and Success with Articulate Rise. We'll go ahead and get started here. So we have some time for some questions and things like that as well. My name is Alana Kubeczka, and I am an instructional designer and an adjunct professor at Lone Star. I've been in education for a really long time. I was in K-12 prior to coming full-time to Lone Star, and actually have been adjuncting for Lone Star since about 2008. So anyway, that is a little bit about me. Today we're going to talk about some of the problems that I encountered with a couple of with an instructor, and then also with one of our organizational development, the faculty development sector in our college as well. I'll talk about what we did to solve the problems and tell you a little bit about a couple of case studies and some best practices and practical tips. But I have been listening to all of the wonderful presentations today, so I'm sure that all of you pretty much already know most of that anyway. And then we'll talk about some takeaways. And of course, I have uploaded a lot of documents for you to be able to use in, I believe everything is uploaded online as well in the schedule. So you should be able to access those things there. All right. So first of all, the main problems when we were doing kind of the needs assessment and the reason that one professor came to me as well was that we found that students just weren't reading course texts. And the case study I'm going to talk about today is an accounting course, but since then I've seen it and heard it from a lot of other instructors, and I'm sure you all hear the same thing from instructors as well, that students just aren't reading textbooks. Now, coming from a K-12 background, I can definitely tell you that that is something that they're taught, right, from a very young age, because there really just aren't textbooks anymore in K-12 either. So by the time they're getting to us in college, they really are not equipped to read long and heavy texts, especially things that are really content heavy. So this, for example, the case study I'm going to talk about today is accounting. And many of them just aren't used to that. And the assigned readings, they just weren't reading them. So then the instructor also talked to me about like low student engagement in her online courses. This is in an asynchronous online course with our online college. And she said that they often struggle to stay engaged with the material. Now, I don't know about you, but it is accounting. So I did ask her, like, hey, is it just because it's accounting? But no, she assured me that there were some accounting majors or business majors, and it was just having a lot of trouble keeping them engaged in the content that they were using. And she noticed that every time she just put like links to third-party integrations and things like that, that there was really low participation in those and in the discussions and things like that. So there also was in the accounting class, she was not seeing a lot of the same students move from one level of accounting to the next. And she is the full-time faculty for the accounting. And so she would see them from semester to semester, and she noticed that a lot of them weren't also moving on. Now, at the same time that was happening, our instructional design team got a request from faculty development because they were wanting to kind of take a look at their adjunct certification program with a new director that had moved in at the time. And this was another, low student retention. There weren't a lot of adjuncts, not enough or not as many as they wanted, moving on from one level to the next. There are 3 levels of the program, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. So these were kind of the problems that they were noticing and they wanted some help with. So I'd love to hear from you, and I'm going to go ahead and put it in the chat as well, so you can answer there. But what are some of the biggest engagement challenges that you've seen in courses that you support? Anybody? Anybody? right? They just go to the straight to the assignments. I see that, and not actually reading the materials that they need for the assignment. They skim through the content. Yep. Yeah, students not reading. Oh, good. So then you hear that as well. And I have the same thing in the courses that I teach as well, that the students really aren't reading the text, right? So I'm going to put this one in the chat too, so you can kind of see it. How do you currently address issues like low participation or high dropout rates in your online or your hybrid courses? So really just focusing on that online learning environment. And you're probably going to say a lot of the things we're going to talk about, but I'm just trying to see what kinds of courses you guys are interacting with as well. Anyone? Anyone? Good, by creating like more interactive assignments, recommending weekly activities to keep them engaged, right? And then checking back in with them as well. And so I'm not sure what LMS you use where you are. We use D2L. But I'm familiar with Canvas and Blackboard and all of that as well. So I know that it's pretty much that way everywhere. But you can set up, I know in D2L it's intelligent agents, but you can set up things to kind of alert you and the students when they're missing assignments, right? And so sometimes those things do work. And so I want to address that. Like some of those things do work, but that really doesn't necessarily boost their engagement. It's just kind of a gotcha, right? That kind of catches them when they're not doing that. But it doesn't really praise them for actually interacting, right? Which, pedagogically speaking, is where you want to catch them, right? Like doing the thing that you want them to do. Good, creating bite-sized or micro-learning content so it's easier to retain. Great. And that's what you're going to see we did here. Yeah, they get tired about doing like different things. I mean, sorry, the same thing, tired of reading and quiz and discussion like every week, the exact same thing. So kind of varying the content some as well. Bonus opportunities, frequent opportunities for feedback. That's great too. And story with visuals. That's good, giving a lot more visual context. So yeah, awesome. Of course, I knew that a group of designers was going to definitely have some really great ideas. So the solution that we found for these problems that were the specific problems that we encountered in our needs assessment were to use Articulate Rise. So I'm not sure if you are familiar with the Articulate suite. It's one of my favorites, and I see some of my colleagues in here, and they're going to be like, oh, here she goes again. But I really do love Articulate, and I think that it's such an incredible way to create that micro-learning someone mentioned earlier. And really also, someone was saying drawing attention with visuals. That's also something that you can do with Articulate, incorporating different kinds of content, right? Interactive content. So they're quick to create. They're auto-graded if they integrate with your LMS. And so for us with using D2L, Brightspace D2L, we do have an integration for that. So it auto-grades itself, sends it right to the gradebook. So it's not a heavy lift for the instructor once they have that all uploaded and everything into their course. It's interactive. Of course, you make it as interactive as you want it to be. I'm sure most of you are familiar with Articulate Rise as well. It is available on demand, which is great for asynchronous courses because there's never like a limit to it. Also, it's great for every kind of device. It is easily seen on a tablet, on a phone, on a laptop. And as I said, it is LMS compatible, right? So what I'd love to know is of the benefits listed here, let me put this in the chat too, because I know I hate it when I'm in something and they ask a question and I'm like, wait, what did they say? Of the benefits listed here, interactive, on demand, LMS compatible, all of the things that you see on the screen right now, which of them do you think have made the biggest impact on your own design work? Just the ability to design things and to, integrate something quickly, which one of these components, these 5 components? Okay, the interactivity has made the biggest impact on your own work. Anyone else? What's the best thing about this solution? I mean, for me, I'm going to say they're quick to create, right? If you use Articulate Rise. Now, Articulate Storyline is also a really great product, part of the Articulate suite. And I've had to use it since then for several things when things get a little bit more specialized. For example, there was a project-based learning module that we're doing that I did for another class, and it really required Storyline because it needed to have a lot of interactive triggers and things for the type of course that it was. LMS compatible tools, that's always good. Keep students there in the MLS, yep. And yeah, they have built-in templates. That's great because it's quick to create. All right. The other thing I would love to know is when you're deciding on a tool to use, you're deciding which tool am I going to use for this design project, how do you determine whether a new tool like Rise is a good fit for your course or that program? Because it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all, right? So what criteria do you use when you're working on a course to, decide, hey, this is the best tool for this, or maybe there's another tool that's better for it? What kinds of things would you do to see whether or not that was the tool? Or maybe you decide to use a different tool. How do you know that that's going to be a good fit for the course? Yep, the time to build, does it integrate? Kind of the things that you see up here, right? Do you want it to have those things? So when I'm looking at trying to increase engagement for an instructor who comes to us asking for that, and I know we have a lot of those at Lone Star who'll come saying, hey, we need some ways to increase our engagement. And through talking to most of the instructors I've worked with, these are the kind of things they want. They don't want it to be a heavy lift on them. They kind of want it to be something that runs itself, but that students are engaged in. So it kind of hits all of these points. So the first case study that I mentioned earlier is the accounting courses. So I know that sometimes I think data is important, and I think that the data specifically for this build is really impressive. And the reason that I proposed this session was because of this data, and because I know that data-driven instruction is a thing that we all talk about. And I know, I don't know about you guys, but in my graduate coursework, those statistics were the worst class. I did not want to do those data-driven classes. But I do know that it's what talks to leadership, really, right? That they want to see they want to see the proof that it's working. So I think you're going to be impressed with this as well. So in our accounting courses, what we did is with this, we started with one course and we ended up doing 3 different courses so far. And we've integrated these Articulate Rise. She calls them warm-ups. And the reason that she called them warm-ups is because she didn't want it to take place of the text. So she didn't want to invalidate the text and say the text wasn't important. This instructor in particular uses OER. And so she, wanted to go ahead and promote reading and that they should learn how to do those things. But at the same time, wanted to give them the basic nuts and bolts rundown that the students would really need in order to be successful in the course. And so she called them warm-ups because she thought it was less I don't know, threatening or something to the students. And we did see noticeable improvements in the student performance from year to year. So the overall averages remained strong in both terms, but the minimum scores. And so that was the one statistic that we kind of pulled out of all of the data that we were looking at afterwards, just to kind of see what kind of a difference it was making. And I will say that the only thing that was changed, and I asked her to do that because at the when we started working on all of these courses, she was like, oh, I could come up with this. Oh, I could come up with this. And we since then have added more things, but for the purpose of seeing the direct efficacy of just using Articulate Rise, lessons inside of her class, we didn't change anything else. And she was really great and accommodating and did that. So it jumped from the minimum from a 70.3 to an 81. And so that was pretty impressive when the only thing that changed, well, I mean, the students changed, right? Because it's not the same students every semester, but still to have that big of a jump in the lowest score in the course on their midterm exam, I thought was really impressive. And then for chapter 1, the minimum score increased over 6 points. So I think that's huge, especially in a class like accounting, which a lot of students take. This is the first course of accounting that we were doing this in. And I will say that she did have soft chalk lessons in there before, not to hate on soft chalk, a lot of people like that, but she did find that the soft chalk lessons were not as engaging and that the students were having trouble with being able to like open them, and she was having a lot of technical difficulties with them. So that's another reason that we decided to go with Rise. So the only change that was made was that. And so you can see the differences here just in between 2022 and 2024, which means, there were several students, right, who were taken into this data, because this would have been 4 semesters of data, okay, from the fall of 22 and through the fall of 2024 when we took all of this. So I thought those were pretty impressive scores, data scores, right? So I'm going to put one more question in the chat over here. Have you ever tracked the impact of a specific design change on student outcomes like this? Has anyone ever taken one thing and then what were you able to find? I mean, if you haven't, just put no, so I know that you're like there. The little black boxes are people and stuff. Anyone tracked like a specific instructional design change like this? No? It really does kind of open your eyes to like what is going on. And it's great if you can find, I know I was super lucky, if you can find a professor who's willing to kind of go through that process with you. All right. So if you had these kinds of gains in a course, when you see gains, then what would be the next steps that you would take to sustain it or to scale the improvement? Any ideas? If you saw this after you implemented one design change in the course, what would you do to like keep that moving? Student surveys, they track a lot of things, that's right. And we did get student feedback as well. You'll see a couple of examples of that. Most of them were very, they had been in her course before, like another course of hers, an Excel course. And so they were really, giving her high praise for having such interactivity. Anybody else? No? So the things that we've done is not stop here, right? Because we're seeing all this improvement. So continue to do those things. So then we have built on it. This was for the first semester of accounting. We've now done it for 2 more semesters. And this year we will work on the 4th semester. And that'll be all 4 courses that she teaches. And it is continuing. We're continuing to see the same kinds of gains in each of the courses. So I'm really impressed by that. So we decided to do that. And then we've also started looking at some other like alternative assessment types and things like that to kind of align a little bit better with what the Articulate Rise lessons are. So the second case study was So that was talking about like direct student impact. So this one is on faculty, and there is an adjunct certification program. And as part of the original version of this, the adjuncts were required to attend like multiple live training sessions, and they had to sit through lectures, they had to complete homework and papers afterwards. And so this format for our context anyway often conflicted with their day jobs. And it meant that a lot of them did not want to continue in the program. So what do you think, and I'm going to go ahead and put this here, sorry. I'll put this one in the chat, see if anybody has any ideas about this. What do you think are some barriers that adjuncts or part-time instructors face in your context? And how could course design address those? And then I'll tell you a little bit about what we did with this adjunct certification program. Anybody? You have adjuncts that you work with or part-time faculty that you work with that have some different barriers than your full-time faculty? Okay, less experience teaching. Yeah, that's one as well. And so this program is really great for our adjuncts because it does address all of those teaching styles and engagement styles and backwards design and all of those good things, all of those best practices. But a lot of them weren't taking the next level of the program. There's 3 levels, and they'd stop with whichever level they were at. Maybe some would go on to the next one, but they really had less than a 50% rate continuing. Having a presence in their online course, yeah, that's a hard one. That comes with some experience, right? And time to work on their courses. That's right. And I think Melanie also said time and commitment. Yeah. So with this adjunct certification program, we shifted to more of a hybrid format, and it included some like some articulate rise courses, and this was a really heavy build. So since I taught for many years, and another designer on our team also, she's here today. Thank you, Maria. And she also has a lot of experience teaching. And so we were both working on this project and trying to, also trying to build some of the courses as well. And shifting a lot of those lecture-based meetings that they had to have to on-demand, interactive, self-paced learning modules, which is what we were able to do. Their completion rates of the course, like not dropping out before the end, increased by 27%. And there was a 55% increase in participants that continued from one level to the next level. And that was across all 3 levels. So I thought that was a pretty significant increase as well. So it reduced the facilitator workload because, as we said, those Articulate Rise lessons are, self-grading and they auto-grade. But it also made it more accessible and flexible and appealing for all of those adjuncts who are working professionals. So before, there would be like 4 to 10 live meetings and every single level that they went to. And that's a lot of meetings. And the meetings were about 2 hours a piece. And now we have reduced it where they just have 2 check-in meetings. There was low completion. Now there's an increase. Few continued. Now there's an increase. It's a lighter load for the instructors, the facilitators for those courses, because it's self-paced and auto-graded for the most part, except for their 1 meeting at the beginning and 1 meeting at the end of the program. And it is more flexible and interactive for their learning. So these were a couple of testimonials that we got from students in the courses. And I'll just let you read those, but don't worry, you'll get to see them later. I don't want to run out of time. I want to have time for questions if you have them as well. So I know you all know the process, discussing the content with the subject matter expert. Creating a template and a sharing space is really important, as I'm sure all of you know. And I did leave the template that I used in the beginning with her. It's kind of evolved since then, but there's a really basic one. I kind of packaged it as a toolkit, but I see that they kind of put it all as different PDFs, but you can download all of those materials that I created. And then determine the layout, the knowledge checks, and the interactivity for the RISE modules. Again, there's an example in the toolkit for that. And then, of course, you have to meet after you complete those modules and let them review it one last time. And then before you export the SCORM, I'm not sure how it is where you are, but only our design team has access to Articulate. And so it really is something that we have to work with them on. Maybe some professors where you are have their own access and you could just guide them into how to create those themselves as well. But you want to try to make as many edits as you can before you export the SCORM to upload it for the course. And I put a job aid there in the toolkit for you as well. So of course, these are the best practices and the practical tips for creating these lessons, specifically Articulate RISE lessons, because I really feel like it was the best tool to use to address these specific problems that they were having in the classes. It's really important, we learned by trial and error, actually, that you have to stay consistent across the lessons, because we did try like having a different format in each one in the very beginning, and students were really confused that first semester. So the next semester we went and standardized them all, where it always started with the same kind of section, so they kind of knew what to expect, almost more like a textbook, which they were trying to not participate in, So staying consistent across the lessons ended up being really important. Also keeping them under 45 minutes, because when you export Articulate RISE as a SCORM package, it does not allow students to save their progress and come back to it. At least it doesn't in D2L. So maybe it does in other integrations, I'm not sure. So what we tried to do is keep them all under 45 minutes and, recommended time. Some people will go through faster, obviously. And then always put a disclaimer at the beginning of the course saying, don't start this course unless you have 45 minutes to complete it, because that's about how long it's going to take. Using really high quality visuals, I created most of them in my other favorite, Canva. I know lots of people really like, Adobe, and it's great too. And I have used that as well. But Canva seemed a little bit easier, and it was easier for me to help teach the subject matter expert as well how to use, because she already had access to Canva. So she was able to make a lot of the visuals. Yeah, me too, Roxanne. I love Canva. But I will say that it was really easy to teach. I think there's a learning curve with, using the Adobe suite. Not that it's not great. I just think there's a learning curve with it. So it just takes a little bit longer for maybe people who are not really designers to figure it out, right? But there are a lot of templates in Canva and things like that. And using those high quality visuals really captured their attention. Always inviting feedback and reflection. We did this every single time, every semester, even in the middle of the semester after the midterm, we took an assessment as well, just to kind of see how the feedback was going and made some adjustments there. Co-creating the template at the very beginning is important with the subject matter expert, because they're the ones who have to fill that out to give you the information, right? So you have to make sure that you understand what they're putting there and all of those things. Making sure there's frequent knowledge checks, and that you kind of lock it down so that they have to go through those knowledge checks. And they're checking, like, did they understand what was going on? Designing it with mobile in mind, but Articulate does a great job of letting you preview it in any format, in a tablet, in a mobile device, so you can really preview it that way as well. I would definitely research your integration procedures first. If you do not use Brightspace D2L, I have not done the research on other LMS platforms, so I'm not sure how it integrates there. But I will say that the help at Articulate 360, they're amazing, and their tech team is really good and super responsive about trying to get with you to, help you make it a little more accessible. Mixing the text with interactivity. So there is some text, right? There were some things that she wanted to say and she wanted to use, but making sure to break up the text with interactive components, making sure the learning objectives were stated at the beginning. And, it does guide the learner's journey because the way that Rise moves through, right? You're having to click through. So again, all of the handouts were provided to you for all of these things as well. So don't be afraid to ask for student and participant feedback on how to improve the course or support their learning. I say that to, instructors as well. And I know sometimes some instructors really don't want feedback, but, they just want to believe that their course is the best course in the whole world. And I know that they're super passionate about their subject, right? And that is one of the things that I always keep that in mind. Like they're really passionate about it, but I have to try to also impress upon them that their students aren't necessarily passionate about that same subject, right? Their students maybe just taking this as a course requirement, and maybe they're not really as like engaged in the content as the instructor is. And just food for thought, perhaps something just as simple as changing the format of the information that they receive helps them stay engaged and invested. So they told me to make sure to leave some time. So I think we're right at about 2:30. Excellent. This is my contact information. I'd love to be able to connect with you on LinkedIn. I am there, and please feel free to email me. I know they put my email and contact information on the website as well. Yes, Melanie, I did share the slides. I'm not sure why those weren't uploaded, but I certainly can share that with you as well. All right, does anyone have any other questions? Anything I can answer? Do you encounter accessibility issues in your modules once it's loaded into the module? No. In fact, this was one of the things that we were really looking into, because this professor did, the second semester of us working on these modules, did have a student who required some accessibility modifications or accommodations, sorry. And so the great thing about Articulate is it's really already built into most of it. And you can definitely add alt text and all of those things to every single component of your module or your lesson. So that was not an issue. I mean, I guess sometimes there might be a special accessibility, but I think that would be true with, any content or anything that you were working on if it was specialized for a course. Anyone? All right, well, I'm going to leave you with this, and if you could put something in the chat for everybody, that would be great. What is one small change that you think you could implement this month or this summer to improve learner engagement in one of the courses that you work with? Even if it's not Articulate Rise, sometimes you have just one small change can make such a big impact in the learning and the engagement of the students in the course. Yeah, warm-ups, they think it's kind of a trick, right? Because it's one of those teacher tricks. They think that it's just this short little warm-up, but really it's the big, I have to know this kind of ideas. Bonus round discussions. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that kind of depends on what you're teaching or what content it is, but those could be really fun too, especially if they were for current events. Anyone else? Yes. I mean, that is a thing, right? That you do have to have an instructor who's willing to make the change, right? Oh, I don't know why it's not wanting to upload my file. I'm going to try again. Trying to upload the slides for you guys. But yeah, you do have to have kind of a hard conversation with them about their course. And sometimes that's great. And sometimes it's not. But, you know, if you can show them a few of the modules, I mean, sometimes that's the thing that really sells them. Since we have a couple minutes, I can show you one of the RISE modules. If you have something else, please put it in the chat. I did send you the slides as well. I had given them to them. I'm not sure what happened there. So if you don't have any more questions or anything, you can go. I'm going to share my screen and show you a couple of the modules that we created. If you want to stay and see, that's great. If not, that's absolutely okay as well. So here is one of the ones we did for the adjunct certification program. This one was kind of fun. Of course, this was, you know, focused towards instructors, not students, but the instructors are students still. And so just different kinds of students. All right, so I'll preview this. So you'll see up here at the top, right, it lets you see the tablet, the desktop, and mobile. So that's kind of fun too. So they would start here. They would see this over on the side. They know what they're looking for. They give them their objectives right at the beginning. Gives them some information, some bullet points, make sure we're breaking it up with some visuals, you know, using the tabs as well. And it's going to make you click. I put it on here so that they have to click through everything to be able to go to the next part. And then, you know, they have to answer some knowledge checks before they can move on to the next section as well. So that is one of them. And then here is another one. Let's do, oh, something so incredibly riveting like understanding T accounts. I know you've all wanted to learn about T accounts too. So this one's going to have the same kind of interactivity as well. We always said right here, remember you have to have at least 45 minutes to complete it. It's good to tell them that up front. So with this instructor, we really tried to make each one the same. Remember, I told you we went back and standardized them. So we always did the why it matters, and that's some sort of a real life case study, you know, connecting that learning to real life, a quick recap of what they should already know before they came into this. This particular one was for the second semester. So it's kind of like what they already knew, letting them take, you know, a pre-assessment quiz to kind of go, hey, I already know this stuff, or I need to, you know, that. Then we have each section that would be like the sections of a textbook, but these are so much shorter. And then, of course, it ends with a learning check-in and links to all the resources that were used because this was an OER textbook. So that was all linked in there as well. So these are all going to have this, for this particular course, they would all have the same kind of layout. And it really did help them be able to understand it. So this is what I was telling you, is that why does it matter? And so this is, you know, giving a case study of Jan and why would it be important. Again, looking at all of these, we did different kinds of interactivity. And you have to do all of them because I forgot to change the settings before I showed it to you. But how much they already know, there's a quiz here as well that they have to start. And then let me get out of the preview and we can show you one of these as well. So just pick any of these and you can kind of see the content. So she would make different graphics for me. Sometimes I had to remake them for her because they weren't really super engaging. She did use some videos and labeled graphics as well so that they would understand that this is what the T account chart was going to look like. And we created this together. And Again, they would have to do, this is a sorting activity. So all within this one, they had several different visuals, several different kinds of interactivity to do as well. And so all of the students were really honestly pretty excited about like the change in that, and that they said that they understood it a lot more after they did the warm-ups than if they were just going to read the text, which obviously that is kind of how it works. But anyway, anyone have any last minute questions? If not, it was really great getting to spend some time with you this afternoon. Thank you so much for spending an hour with me, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.